In the sprawling Museum of American Military Equipment, among the sophisticated guided missiles, advanced fighter jets, and complex electronic systems, one weapon stands apart. It was designed in 1918, entered service in 1933, and remains in frontline service today, nearly a century after its creation. It has served in every American military conflict from World War II through Afghanistan and Iraq. It has been mounted on ships, aircraft, vehicles, and fortifications. It has shot down aircraft, destroyed vehicles, suppressed infantry, and engaged targets at ranges exceeding 2 kilometers. American service members call it Ma Deuce, and it is formally designated the Browning M2 .50 caliber machine gun. It is arguably the most successful machine gun ever created, a weapon so effective that after 9 decades, no replacement has been found necessary or even desirable. The story of the M2 begins not in 1918, but earlier, with the genius of firearms design whose name became synonymous with American weaponry, John Moses Browning. Born in 1855 in Ogden, Utah, Browning grew up in his father's gunsmith shop, learning firearms design and manufacture from childhood. He designed his first firearm at age 13. By his 20s, he was inventing weapons that would change military history. The Winchester rifle, the Colt 1911 pistol, the Browning automatic rifle, the Auto 5 shotgun, all bear his name, all revolutionized their respective categories. But perhaps his most enduring creation was the M2 machine gun, a weapon that would outlast all his others in military service. The immediate impetus for the M2's development was World War I. American forces entering the war in 1917 found themselves facing German aircraft and realizing they lacked effective weapons to counter this threat. Existing machine guns fired rifle-caliber ammunition, typically .30 caliber or 7.62 millimeters, which was marginally effective against aircraft but lacked the range and destructive power for consistent success. What was needed was a heavier cartridge that could reach high-flying aircraft and damage them effectively when hits were achieved. The U.S. Army approached John Browning with a request: develop a heavy machine gun firing a new, more powerful cartridge. Browning, already in his 60s, but still at the peak of his creative powers, accepted the challenge. Working with Winchester repeating arms, he designed both a new cartridge, the .50 caliber BMG, Browning machine gun, and a machine gun to fire it. The cartridge was massive compared to rifle ammunition, 12.7 millimeters in diameter with a case 99 millimeters long, firing a bullet weighing 42 to 52 grams at muzzle velocities around 900 meters per second. This gave the round tremendous energy and range, capable of being effective at distances exceeding 1,800 meters. The original gun, designated M1921, was water-cooled and intended primarily for anti-aircraft use. It worked, demonstrating the viability of the .50 caliber concept, but water cooling made it heavy and complex. Browning and his team developed an air-cooled version, which became the M2. The air-cooled design used a heavy barrel that could absorb and dissipate heat, eliminating the need for a water jacket. This made the gun simpler, lighter, and more versatile. John Moses Browning died in 1926, but his design lived on. The M2 was officially adopted by the U.S. military in 1933 and entered production. The basic operating system was a short recoil design, proven in Browning's earlier weapons. When the gun fired, the barrel and bolt recoiled together for a short distance. Then the barrel stopped while the bolt continued rearward, extracting the spent case, compressing the return spring, and cocking the hammer. The return spring then drove the bolt forward, chambering a fresh round and firing it. The cycle repeated as long as the trigger was held and ammunition was available. The rate of fire was approximately 450 to 550 rounds per minute, slower than many machine guns, but appropriate for the heavy .50 caliber round. The slower rate meant better controllability, longer barrel life, and more efficient use of ammunition. The gun could fire single shots, short bursts, or sustained fire as the tactical situation required. With proper barrel changes and maintenance, an M2 could fire almost indefinitely as long as ammunition was supplied. The weapon that entered service in 1933 weighed 38 kilograms for the basic gun, not including mount or ammunition. It was 165 centimeters long with a 114-centimeter barrel. It was belt-fed, using disintegrating link ammunition belts that could be joined together for continuous fire. The gun could be mounted on tripods for ground use, on vehicles for mobile firepower, on ships for anti-aircraft and anti-boat defense, and even on aircraft for air-to-air and air-to-ground combat. This versatility became one of the M2's greatest strengths. A single weapon design could fill multiple roles across all branches of service. World War II provided the M2's baptism of fire and proved its extraordinary effectiveness. The gun was mounted on virtually every type of American military vehicle: jeeps, half-tracks, tanks, armored cars, and trucks. It was installed on ships, from PT boats to battleships. It was fitted to bombers as defensive armament and to fighters for offensive firepower. It was emplaced in fixed defensive positions from the Philippines to North Africa to Normandy. Wherever American forces fought, the M2 was there. In the Pacific theater, the M2 proved devastatingly effective against Japanese aircraft. American ships, bristling with .50 caliber machine guns, created fields of fire that Japanese aircraft had to penetrate to attack. The combination of the M2's range, hitting power, and the volume of fire from multiple guns made attacking American ships extremely dangerous for Japanese pilots. Many Japanese aircraft were shot down or damaged by .50 caliber fire before they could release their bombs or torpedoes. Seaman First Class James Johnson, serving aboard the destroyer USS Laffey during the Okinawa campaign, described defending his ship with an M2. "The Japs came in waves, kamikazes trying to crash into us. My .50 cal position was on the port side amidships. I saw them coming, these planes diving straight at us, and I opened fire. The tracers, every fifth round was a tracer, made a line of light between my gun and the target. I could see my rounds hitting, pieces flying off the aircraft. One plane I hit burst into flames and went into the sea short of the ship. Another I damaged enough that the pilot couldn't control it, and it crashed alongside us instead of into us. The .50 cal gave us a fighting chance. Without it, we would have been helpless." Ground combat saw the M2 employed in multiple roles. Mounted on vehicles, it provided mobile firepower for advancing forces. The heavy .50 caliber round could penetrate light armor, destroy vehicles, and suppress enemy positions at ranges rifle caliber machine guns couldn't match. Infantry advancing behind vehicles equipped with M2s had a significant advantage. The psychological impact of the big gun's distinctive sound and visible tracer fire was as important as its physical destructiveness. The M2 was also used as an anti-personnel weapon, though this was controversial. The .50 caliber round was so powerful that it could literally tear a human body apart. International laws of war traditionally held that weapons should be designed to incapacitate rather than inflict excessive injury, and some argued the M2 violated this principle when used against personnel. However, the U.S. military position was that the M2 was designed as an anti-materiel weapon for use against vehicles, aircraft, and equipment, and that its use against personnel was incidental to its primary purpose. This semantic distinction allowed continued use of the weapon against all targets. Sergeant Audie Murphy, who became America's most decorated soldier of World War II, used an M2 mounted on a burning tank destroyer to single-handedly hold off a German infantry assault in France in January 1945. For over an hour, Murphy directed artillery fire by radio while firing the M2 at attacking German infantry and vehicles. His accurate fire killed dozens of German soldiers and destroyed or disabled several vehicles, disrupting the attack long enough for American reinforcements to arrive. Murphy's actions, for which he received the Medal of Honor, demonstrated the M2's effectiveness in desperate defensive combat. The air-to-air role was another area where the M2 excelled. American fighters and bombers mounted multiple .50 caliber machine guns, creating devastating concentrated firepower. The P-51 Mustang carried 6 M2s, the P-47 Thunderbolt 8, and heavy bombers like the B-17 and B-24 carried 10 or more. This heavy armament made American aircraft among the most powerfully armed in the world. Fighter pilots praised the M2's combination of hitting power and sufficient ammunition capacity. Unlike cannon, which fired explosive shells but carried limited ammunition, the M2 fired solid projectiles but could carry much more ammunition. A P-51 6.50 caliber guns carried 1,880 rounds total, allowing sustained firing. This ammunition capacity meant pilots could engage multiple targets or could afford to fire longer bursts to ensure hits.
Colonel Francis Gabby Gabreski, a top American ace with 28 aerial victories in World War II, described the M2's effectiveness. The 50s were perfect for our nades. They had enough hitting power to damage or destroy enemy aircraft, enough range to allow firing from safe distances, and enough ammunition that you didn't have to worry about running out in a single engagement. I could fire a burst into a German fighter and see pieces flying off, see the pilot losing control. Sometimes one good burst was enough. The concentration of 6 guns firing together was devastating. When all your guns were hitting the target, we called that getting good hits. The enemy aircraft would come apart. Bomber crews relied on M2s for defensive firepower. The famous B-17 Flying Fortress bristled with .5 caliber machine guns covering all approach angles. German fighter pilots learned to respect American bomber defensive fire and developed tactics to minimize exposure. Even so, attacking a formation of American bombers meant flying through a storm of .5 caliber fire, and many German fighters were shot down or damaged by bomber gunners. Staff Sergeant Benjamin Warner, a waist gunner on a B-17 in the 8th Air Force, described defending his bomber. You'd see the German fighters coming, usually Bf-109s or FW-190s. They'd attack from different angles, trying to get through our defensive fire. My job was to protect the waist positions, the sides of the aircraft. When fighters came at us, I'd track them with my .50, leading the target, and fire when they got in range. The recoil would shake my whole body. The noise was incredible. My gun firing, other guns firing, the engines, the wind through the open waist windows. Shell casings would pile up around my feet. The gun would get hot, the barrel smoking. Sometimes German fighters would attack and break off when they saw how much fire we were putting out. Other times they'd press through despite our fire, attacking at close range. Some of them didn't make it. I saw fighters disintegrate or catch fire from our defensive fire, but they kept coming because they had orders to stop the bombers. The Korean War saw the M2 continue its service, now proven through World War II combat, but facing new challenges. North Korean and Chinese forces had learned from German experiences and developed tactics to minimize exposure to American firepower. The rugged Korean terrain often limited fields of fire, reducing the M2's range advantage. But the gun remained effective, particularly in defensive positions and vehicle-mounted roles. The M2 found a new role in Korea as an anti-sniper weapon. Communist snipers, often operating from distant positions in hills overlooking American lines, proved difficult for rifle-armed soldiers to counter. The M2's long range and accuracy made it ideal for this role. American units would locate sniper positions and engage them with .5 caliber fire, the heavy bullets penetrating the stone walls and earthworks that protected snipers from rifle fire. This counter-sniper role would become increasingly important in later conflicts. Corporal Mitchell Red Cloud Jr., a Winnebago Native American soldier, earned the Medal of Honor in Korea while manning an M2 position. When Chinese forces attacked his unit's position in November 1950, Red Cloud remained at his machine gun despite being severely wounded, covering his unit's withdrawal with accurate .5 caliber fire. He killed numerous Chinese soldiers before dying at his gun, his sacrifice allowing his comrades to escape. His actions exemplified the courage of countless soldiers who served behind M2s in desperate defensive fights. The Vietnam War brought the M2 into a different type of conflict, counterinsurgency and jungle warfare. The gun's effectiveness against light vehicles and structures proved valuable. Viet Cong and North Vietnamese forces had limited armor, but they used trucks, boats, and fortified positions that the M2 could destroy effectively. The M2 was mounted on river patrol boats, armored vehicles, and defensive positions throughout South Vietnam. The M2's role in Vietnam expanded to include helicopter armament. Door gunners on helicopters used M2s to suppress enemy positions during insertions and extractions. The heavy .5 caliber round could penetrate the jungle canopy and destroy enemy positions that smaller weapons couldn't affect. Helicopter crews valued the M2's reliability. It functioned in the heat, humidity, and dust of Vietnam with minimal maintenance. Specialist James McClellan, a combat medic in Vietnam, described the M2's protective role. "We had M2s at our firebase providing perimeter defense. When we got hit, mortar attacks, ground probes, sappers trying to breach the wire, those 50s would open up and the sound alone was reassuring. You knew you had serious firepower protecting you. I saw what .5 caliber rounds did to enemy soldiers caught in the open. It was horrific, but effective. The VC learned to avoid our firebase because the defensive fire was so intense. The M2s were a big part of that." The first Gulf War in 1991 demonstrated the M2's continued relevance in modern mechanized warfare. Coalition forces, equipped with advanced technology, including thermal sights and laser rangefinders, used M2s mounted on vehicles throughout the conflict. The gun proved effective against Iraqi light vehicles, fortifications, and even some armored vehicles at close range. Stories circulated of M2 gunners engaging and destroying Iraqi armored vehicles with accurate, sustained fire. The psychological impact of the M2 remains significant. Iraqi soldiers surrendering to coalition forces often mentioned the terrifying effectiveness of American heavy machine gun fire. The visible tracer rounds, the distinctive sound, and the physical destruction convinced many Iraqi units that resistance was futile. While air power and armor dominated headlines, ground combat often came down to infantry and vehicle-mounted weapons like the M2 engaging enemy positions directly. The war on terror that began after September 11, 2001, brought the M2 into yet another type of conflict: extended counterinsurgency operations in urban and desert environments. In Iraq and Afghanistan, American forces mounted M2s on Humvees, RAM, mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, and fixed defensive positions. The gun's ability to engage targets at long range in open desert terrain proved valuable. Its effectiveness against vehicles made it ideal for checkpoint security and convoy protection. Staff Sergeant David Bellavia, who fought in the Second Battle of Fallujah in November 2004, described the M2's urban combat role. "In city fighting, the 50 was crucial. It could penetrate walls that small arms couldn't. When we were taking fire from a building, we'd bring up a vehicle with a 50 and suppress the position. The heavy rounds would punch through concrete and masonry, killing or suppressing the enemy inside. The gun was also effective for psychological operations. A few bursts from a 50 would often convince enemy fighters to cease fire and withdraw. They knew they couldn't survive against that kind of firepower." The counter-sniper role that emerged in Korea became even more important in Iraq and Afghanistan. Insurgent snipers and machine gunners often engaged American forces from positions hundreds of meters away, beyond effective range of most infantry weapons. The M2, with its accuracy and range, became the weapon of choice for counter-sniper operations. American forces would identify enemy firing positions and engage them with .5 caliber fire, often at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters, or nearly 1.5 miles. This extreme range engagement demonstrated the M2's accuracy potential when properly employed with quality optics and skilled marksmanship. While such shots were exceptional, engagements at 800 to 1,200 meters were common and demonstrated the M2's enduring effectiveness at ranges where most infantry weapons were ineffective. Technical evolution of the M2 has been remarkably limited, testament to the soundness of the original design. The basic operating system remains unchanged from the 1933 version. Improvements have focused on accessories and manufacturing techniques rather than fundamental redesign. Modern M2s feature quick-change barrels, a modification allowing faster barrel swaps without headspace adjustment. Optical sights, including thermal and night vision systems, have been added. Better mounting systems improve stability and allow easier traverse and elevation adjustment. But the core weapon, the mechanism that fires .5 caliber rounds at 450 to 550 rounds per minute, is essentially unchanged from John Browning's original design.
The M2's manufacturing has evolved significantly. Original M2s were manufactured using traditional machining techniques, with skilled machinists creating parts to precise specifications. Modern manufacturing uses CNC, computer numerical control machining, allowing more precise parts production with less skilled labor. Some components are now made from advanced materials that are lighter or more durable than original steel parts. But the dimensions and specifications remain the same. Parts from a modern M2 are generally interchangeable with parts from a 1933 model. The reliability and durability of the M2 are legendary. The gun can fire tens of thousands of rounds with minimal maintenance. Stories abound of M2s that have been in service for decades, passed down from one unit to another, still functioning reliably. The heavy construction and conservative design tolerances mean that even worn M2s continue functioning when lighter, more sophisticated weapons fail. Master Sergeant Nicholas Horesco, a World War II veteran who later served as an instructor, described the M2's reliability. "I've seen M2s work in every condition imaginable: freezing cold, desert heat, jungle humidity, mud, dust, sand. I've seen them fired until the barrel glowed red, then continue firing after a barrel change. I've seen M2s that were poorly maintained, neglected, even abused, still function when needed. The gun is massively overbuilt by modern standards, but that's why it keeps working. There's no weak point, no delicate component that breaks easily. It's brute force engineering, and it works." Ammunition for the M2 has evolved significantly while maintaining backward compatibility with the original .50 BMG specification. World War II-era ammunition used relatively simple bullets, either solid ball ammunition or armor-piercing rounds with a hardened steel core. Modern ammunition includes far more sophisticated designs, armor-piercing incendiary rounds that can penetrate light armor and then ignite fuel or ammunition, armor-piercing incendiary tracer rounds that combine armor penetration, incendiary effect, and tracer visibility, and specialized rounds including explosive-tipped projectiles for use against material targets. The tracer rounds deserve special mention. Typically, every fifth round in an M2 belt is a tracer, a bullet with a pyrotechnic compound in its base that burns during flight, creating a visible light trail. This allows the gunner to observe where his rounds are going and adjust aim accordingly. The psychological effect of tracers is significant. Enemy forces seeing tracer fire converging on their position understand they're being engaged by heavy weapons and often take cover or retreat. The tracer effect works both ways, though. Tracers also reveal the gun's position to enemy forces. The sound of an M2 firing is distinctive and intimidating. The slower rate of fire compared to smaller machine guns creates a deliberate chug-chug-chug rhythm rather than a continuous buzz. Each shot produces a sharp crack as the heavy bullet breaks the sound barrier, followed by the mechanical sound of the bolt cycling. At a distance, M2 fire sounds different from lighter weapons: deeper, more deliberate, more powerful. Soldiers learn to identify weapons by sound, and the M2's distinctive report becomes reassuring when it's friendly and terrifying when it's hostile. The versatility of the M2 mounting options has been a key factor in its longevity. The gun can be mounted on the M3 tripod for ground use, providing a stable platform for long-range engagement. It can be mounted on vehicles using pintle mounts that allow rapid traverse and elevation. It can be fitted to aircraft using specialized mounts and remote firing systems. Naval mounts allow the gun to be used for anti-aircraft defense and anti-boat warfare. This adaptability means a single weapon design can serve across all military branches and in virtually any role requiring heavy machine gun support. Training for M2 operation has evolved but remains fundamentally similar across decades of service. Gunners learn to load and unload the weapons safely, clear malfunctions, perform immediate action drills, and conduct basic maintenance. They practice engaging targets at various ranges, learning to estimate range and adjust fire. Advanced training includes night firing, firing from moving vehicles, and coordinated fire with other weapons. The training emphasizes safety. The M2's power means that negligent use can be catastrophic. Gunnery Sergeant Carlos Hathcock, legendary Marine Corps sniper in Vietnam, used an M2 fitted with a telescopic sight to achieve one of the longest-range sniper kills of the war, 2,500 yards, or approximately 2,290 meters. Hathcock's use of the M2 as a precision weapon was unconventional, but demonstrated the gun's accuracy potential. His success inspired later development of specialized long-range rifles chambered in .50 BMG, creating an entirely new category of weapons descended from the M2's ammunition. The maintenance requirements for the M2 are straightforward but essential. After firing, the gun should be cleaned to remove powder residue and prevent corrosion. The barrel, chamber, and bolt face receive particular attention. Moving parts are lubricated with appropriate oil or grease depending on environmental conditions. Light oil for hot climates, heavier grease for cold weather. The barrel should be inspected for wear and erosion. Excessively worn barrels affect accuracy and should be replaced. Proper maintenance can keep an M2 functioning reliably for decades. The cost-effectiveness of the M2 has been exceptional. The initial purchase price is moderate, approximately $14,000 for a complete weapon system including gun, spare barrel, tripod, and accessories. Compared to modern weapons costing hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, the M2 is remarkably economical. The ammunition is relatively inexpensive by military standards, approximately $3 to $5 per round in bulk purchases. The long service life means the amortized cost per year of service is minimal. No replacement weapon offers comparable capability at similar cost. International adoption of the M2 has been widespread. Over 100 countries have used the M2 or license-produced copies. NATO forces standardized on the .50 BMG cartridge, ensuring interoperability. Many nations continue using M2s manufactured in the 1940s and 1950s, testament to the weapon's durability. Some countries have developed their own variants with minor modifications for specific requirements, but the basic M2 design remains standard worldwide. The cultural impact of the M2 extends beyond military circles. The gun has appeared in countless films, television shows, and video games, always representing serious firepower. Veterans speak of the M2 with respect and affection, the Ma Deuce nickname reflecting the familiarity and trust soldiers develop for their weapons. The gun has become iconic, a symbol of American military power and technological success. Challenges to the M2's dominance have been minimal. Various attempts have been made to develop replacement heavy machine guns using more modern technology. Lighter materials, more sophisticated operating systems, and improved ammunition handling have all been explored. But none of these developmental weapons have offered sufficient advantages to justify replacing the M2. The gun works, it's reliable, spare parts and ammunition are readily available worldwide, and soldiers are familiar with it. These practical advantages outweigh theoretical improvements from replacement weapons. The M2's role in modern warfare continues evolving. Remote weapon stations, turrets controlled from inside armored vehicles, mount M2s, allowing gunners to engage targets while protected from enemy fire. Integration with advanced fire control systems, including laser rangefinders, thermal sights, and ballistic computers, has enhanced the M2's effectiveness. Some systems can engage targets at extreme ranges with first-round hit probability exceeding 90%, far better than traditional aimed fire. The future of the M2 appears secure for decades to come. The U.S. military has no plans to replace the weapon, and continued upgrades ensure it remains effective against current and foreseeable threats. The gun will likely continue service well into the 21st century, approaching or exceeding 100 years of continuous military use, an achievement unmatched by any other crew-served weapon in history. From John Browning's workshop in 1918 to the mountains of Afghanistan today, from the deck of a World War II battleship to the turret of a modern MRAP, from shooting down Japanese aircraft over the Pacific to engaging insurgents at extreme range in Iraq, the Browning M2 50 caliber machine gun has proven itself one of the most successful weapons ever created. Ma Deuce has earned her place in history not through revolutionary innovation or technological sophistication, but through reliable, effective service under the most demanding conditions imaginable. After nearly a century, the weapon John Browning designed remains in frontline service, a testament to the enduring power of sound engineering and proof that sometimes the old ways are still the best ways. The M2's legacy is measured not in decades, but in the lives it has protected and the battles it has helped win. And that legacy shows no sign of ending.